The Sports Source is brought to you by Fast Frame. Turn your memorabilia into a work of art.
This is The Sports Source, presented by Bill Hotz and Associates, and by Renewal by Andersen, with your host, John Pennington.
Good Sunday morning. Welcome into The Sports Source, this week presented by Renewal by Andersen. The worst season in the long storied history of Tennessee football has come to an end. One of the most precipitous nosedives I've ever seen. Over the course of 2 years, from the time you'd beaten Florida and Georgia to where you are now, it's hard to wrap your head around it. The only thing I can compare it to is maybe the Jerry Green, the final team that got to the top four and then just lost every game down the stretch. But this, of course, is Tennessee football, so that carries a little bit more weight with people. It's kind of like, it's like those old movies where somebody dies and they want to put him in the ground quick before he can become a vampire or something. This season just needs to be buried immediately. I hope there are guys with shovels and pickaxes right now getting to work on that. We're going to talk about the season, where Tennessee is as a program, some interesting numbers there that, in terms of where Tennessee sees itself, some numbers that may surprise. We're certainly going to talk all about the coaching search, the silent search from John Currie. So we'll get into all that right now. First segment of our program brought to you by Renewal by Andersen. And there is no better name in windows and doors anywhere in America, whether it's sliding patio doors, top-of-the-line French doors, replacement windows. Renewal by Andersen adds beauty and value to your home. Stop by their showroom in Bearden and see why I'm telling you about them. They are fantastic. Renewal by Andersen. All right, want to welcome in wave one of our panel today. We have Bob Hodge, Jimmy Hyams.
Beauty and value to your show.
You bring beauty and value. That's great. Jimmy Hyams, Ryan Callahan, Chuck Cavaleris. All right, we usually start with headlines, and these aren't going to be pleasant headlines. First, trading places. You got the Vanderbilt Commodores there. Vanderbilt beat the Vols, obviously, 42-24 yesterday, in front of about 50,000 fans in the stadium. I'll give them credit for having anybody there in the stadium yesterday, but you get whipped by Vanderbilt. Your crowd's about half as big as it normally is. UT finishes 4-8, first 8-loss season in school history, 0-8 in the conference first. Worse, Tennessee has now lost 4 of the last 6 games against Vanderbilt. Okay, you're 2-4 against Vandy over the last 6 years. You've lost 5 of the last 13 against Vanderbilt. Since 2011, that's the last 7 seasons, Vanderbilt's SEC record is 17-39. Tennessee's is 16-40. Gentlemen, wow. Is Tennessee now Vanderbilt?
Yes. I mean, to me, it's obvious. I mean, certainly this year you have the worst football program in the SEC. You did not win a game in the conference. Everybody else won at least one, correct? I mean, yeah, you are. You have become what Vanderbilt was, and Vanderbilt is pulling away.
Anybody agree?
I think over the past 7 years, clearly they have been aligned. Now the key is you got to get out of that, and if you're Tennessee, you can get out of that. You can change that more easily than Vanderbilt can because you have the resources, the facilities, the means to do it, and you have the tradition of that type of program. But over the last 7 years, you mentioned the numbers. Vanderbilt a better SEC record than Tennessee, and on top of that, Vanderbilt has won 4 out of 6 in this series. So they've dominated the series, and there's no sign of that changing. You got to bring in a new coach who can reverse that trend.
And what, 3 of those wins were double digits, or at least 2 of them were blowouts. I think 3 were double digits. Jimmy, is Tennessee now Vanderbilt, or is that way off?
Well, no, they have become that in recent years. That's hard to argue with the numbers. Certainly Tennessee has a greater tradition and the greater ceiling, but my goodness, what's happened over the last few years has been stunning in covering this program. And I know that Tennessee won 9 games each in the last 2 years before this. But still, what they're going through right now, they're right on par with Vanderbilt.
To me, that's what's incredible. You have 2 top 25 seasons in a row. Mm-hmm. You think, okay, now you're getting back at least back in the ballpark where you want to go, and then the complete nosedive. Is Tennessee Vanderbilt?
Yeah, with the exception of what they have said. Tennessee's got better facilities. They've got better tradition. They can build back past that again. But that's the reason. If you don't get things that are on the table right now right, Yeah, you're Vanderbilt, you're Ole Miss, you're Mississippi State. I mean, you have become in danger of being down at that level and staying there. You haven't really been there for a decade, but it feels like you have. It feels like the 2 9-win seasons now never happened.
Right, and you had a 7-6 under Kiffin, and you had another 7. I mean, Jones had 3 winning seasons when you throw in the bowl game his second year. But it feels
but
like
this wiped it out.
Yeah, when you hit
totally
4 and 8.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
When you hit 4 and 8, it cancels all that other stuff out. All right, let's talk about this. This is kind of scary. The next headline: truly top 10. Tennessee is top 10 nationally in all-time wins. More than 800 victories, top 10 all-time. They're number 13 in all-time winning percentage. But here's what that means. All right, between 65 and 66% is what they've won all time. Prorate that over a 12-game season, that's 8-4. And that's one of the top 13 in the country. You're looking at the best teams in the country, their average over that time period is 9-3, meaning you have good years and you have bad years that cancel it out. But 8-4 over their history is what you prorated. Okay, let's go back over the last 30 years. From 1988 to 2017, including a national championship, that incredible 45-5 streak, 8-4. They've averaged 8 wins, 4 losses over the last 30 years. Let me show you this next thing of stats. This is what's really amazing. These are top 10 finishes. The AP poll launched in 1936. Well, from 36 to 54, that's 19 seasons, Tennessee had 8 teams finish in the top 10, 8 out of 19. From 55 to 84, only 6 top 10 teams in 30 years. All right, so 24 years you weren't top 10. 1985 to 2001, this is when people were spoiled. 9 top 10 teams in 17 years. Folks, look since 2002. No top 10 finishes in 16 seasons. That is the longest streak before that was 8 years. It has been 16 years. 7 under Fulmer, 9 under the people who replaced Fulmer, where you haven't finished the top 10. And overall, over that whole streak, that's 82 seasons, 23 top 10 teams. When people think, well, we deserve to get this kind of coach and this kind of coach because we're a top 10 program, I don't think the idea of top 10 program means we should be top 10 every year. History doesn't show that. And recent history shows you're not even close to that.
It shows your tradition is top 10. Your fight song may be top 1, but for what matters to kids today, it's nowhere close to a top 10. It's really not. You may not even be top 25. Really, year after year, you're borderline.
See, I disagree with Chuck a little bit. It does matter to kids because Butch Jones, according to recruiting services, recruited very well most of the time.
Is that because he's a good recruiter, or is that because he's got great tradition to sell?
Well, I mean, I think you've got great tradition to sell, so if you're already a good recruiter, that helps you out a little bit. I mean, what happened to the players when they got here, though, that is the concern.
Right.
You and I have talked a lot about guys leave Tennessee, they go someplace else, they do very little. Well, now you've had guys leave Tennessee, they've gone someplace else, and they've done very well, and that's troubling.
But 16 straight seasons, no top 10 finishes. People keep pointing to, well, this is a short term. No, it goes back to the turn of the century. You have not been a top 10 team since 2002. Will Overstreet, our buddy, was the last guy. He played on the 2001 team. That was the last one to do it. Guys, your thoughts on the top 10 thing?
Yeah, I think it's to the point where now recruits and freshmen at UT right now don't remember when Tennessee won a championship the last time, and that's a concern. It's now you've got to make that generational jump to find a way to win another championship, because right now it's stories being passed down from the last group that remembers the last championship. You got to change that, and it's a big drought, like you said. That makes Tennessee currently not a top 10 program. I would agree.
Jimmy, wrap it up.
Well, no, they're not a top 10 program, but in some of this debate comes down on this coaching search. So I've made the comment I think Tennessee's a top 20 to 25 program. They're not a top 10, but when I look at the SEC, where is Tennessee? I said 5th, and I thought, well, you know what? Somebody argued, well, maybe Auburn's better, maybe A&M's better. That would put Tennessee about 7th in the league for the coaching position in that spot. We've done this before. We looked at Tennessee through the years. They typically have been 5th in every decade as far as wins in the SEC from the 50s on except the 90s, and they were 2nd. So they're not top 10 now. There's no way.
I think that, we've said it before, the 45-5 streak over a 4-year period set a bar that wasn't realistic with the rest of Tennessee history. It doesn't mean you go back and you're terrible. But the reality is you're an 8-4 football program, which still ranks as top 15 in the country in terms of win percentage. But the idea that Tennessee should never finish 8-4, or certainly below, you don't want to finish 4-8. I get that.
Right.
But there's a belief that 45-5 is what you're always going to be. That you're Alabama, and that's not what you've been. Somebody's going to take that and say Pennington says we should get our hopes down and not try. That is not what I'm saying. So when you see that, look at that person and go, idiot. But the fact of the matter is, the ceiling. The ceiling is what John Currie has to be selling right now. He has to be selling, look what happened in the 90s. Look at this history. That's the ceiling. It can be there. The problem is you're not there on a regular basis, and you really haven't been on a regular basis in a long, long time. All right, when we come back, what's the latest on this coaching search? We got 8 people here today, and I think you get 8 different answers. We'll discuss. Come on. And is there a presser today? Come on back.